that one of you owns a dry cleaner, right? And so your business has improved since the tax incentives, but how do you know that that's from the film industry, right? It might be that you've really just been able to build up that business in the community, or there's been many things happening in Atlanta that has, the city has grown. We see, we're all aware of all the construction that is happening. People are moving here, right? So it's not necessarily going to be tied to the tax incentive, but might be included in that number that we're seeing. So it can be a very kind of messy number that is hard for us to get our heads around in terms of what is film really bringing to us as people who live in Atlanta.
Certainly you can't dispute the number of productions that are happening, and in those instances we're in the top 3 in the world any given year in terms of output of film, television, advertising, 273 this past year. But those actual economic impact, how much money in tax revenue we are contributing through that rebate, that $30 or 30%, excuse me, how much of that is actually affecting us, right? Because we're giving out a lot of money, and then we get this 2.6 billion economic impact. Is it worth it? And one of the other things that, if you dig into the numbers here, these pie charts, these gorgeous pie charts that you see here, while we are producing top 3 film and television productions, we don't have the capacity that is comparable with California, New York, or even Texas, Florida, Illinois in some instances, in terms of film companies that are actually housed here and film equipment companies that are needed to put on productions. We're actually, in most cases, sort of at the bottom of the top 10 in terms of that kind of capacity. So there's opportunity for growth to match the amount of production that's happening here. A lot of it is having to be brought in, or is what they call like parachute production or runaway production or mobile production, where other companies are coming here and doing this work, even though there are companies here that could be doing it and that could grow, and there could be more companies, because while we produce a lot, we have capacity that is a lot smaller. Next slide. There's a long history before the tax incentive of Atlanta as a media capital. You probably know Ted Turner and Tyler Perry as two that created their studios here and created an enormous amount of content coming from Atlanta at one point during the growth of cable. 30% of all cable programming was coming from here via the Turner networks. And Tyler Perry's success is unquestionable, as a movie mogul, and that obviously the studios are here. And there are many other examples, but the idea that you could have two media moguls in two different eras be as productive from here, the model lives, right? That can work. And so if you think about that previous slide, building that capacity is something that is attainable. And moments of industrial change are opportunities, like in the cable era for Ted Turner, for that kind of growth that is sustainable. Next slide. One of the things that Kate and I are working on a chapter for an anthology on Atlanta as a media capital, and one of the things we've noticed is Atlanta's very hospitable to any kind of production. Some places are known for doing certain kinds of genres, right? Eastern Europe and like fantasy films, like or TV series like Game of Thrones. That they're sort of connected to genre. In Atlanta, all of the genres kind of come here, but a lot of it, right? A lot of genre fare. So when Ted Turner is starting the Turner Networks, he makes a lot of very mass-oriented, broadly popular content. And then Atlanta, in the contemporary moment, is doing a lot of genre fare in these spaces as well. And so we've had this kind of idea of Southern hospitality. You can come here and we'll produce it. And so there's this, if you're looking at sort of genre history, there is a moment in all of these genres that have been heavily influenced by Atlanta's spaces and production crews. Anything else you want to say about that Southern hospitality idea? Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one.
I'll just say Southern hospitality is something that people from the South understand as a phrase better than people outside of the South understand as a phrase. So I don't feel like we need to elaborate on that for y'all.
Yeah, we're thinking about it in terms of like how that translates to the broader industry outside, right? This expectation of accommodation, right? And that we're going to be able to do what we need to do there. At the same time, the growth in Atlanta's media production corresponds to several moments of reckoning within the media industries, whether it be around issues of labor or race or gender. Atlanta's position and its history as the cradle of civil rights situates, helps the productions that come here, right? At a moment when the industry was thinking our casts aren't diverse enough, our practices aren't fair, they were coming to Atlanta to produce content in the shadow of civil rights. And so there's a way in which the industry thinks of Atlanta as different, right, than New York or LA. And as a place where they'll often reference the diversity of Atlanta as a strength of producing there. So when HBO does, a new series of Watchmen with a black lead thinking about the history of civil rights, they shoot it next, in all of these neighborhoods of the history of civil rights. When the Marvel movies try and diversify their cast for their television series, that's all happening here. And they often talk about that in relation to the productions. Like we do it in Atlanta and it's infused. And if you think about all that genre fare, any analysis of genre in this era is going to be influenced by the backgrounds of Atlanta, giving it that extra tone, theme, feeling of civil rights. And so there's a way in which the industry thinks of Atlanta as different, as a place of civil rights, which gives us this opportunity to push and provide new models for making difference to the broader industry. That's, I think, the biggest takeaway I hope that you come away with. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. We are at another moment of change. People are calling it, post-pandemic, post-labor agreement, post-venture capital, right? We had this moment, and maybe you can speak to this a little more better than I can. We had this moment of a lot of money going in to build streaming platforms, which helped increase the number of productions, and for a variety of reasons, that money is drying up, and those streaming companies are suddenly having to demonstrate a profit that they've never had to demonstrate before, and we're going to see more consolidation, where certain companies are going to buy certain other companies, and so we're in this kind of moment of crouch, where everybody's kind of wondering what's going to be next for the entertainment industry. You want to say some more about that?
Yeah, and I will also sort of add in this kind of post-strike moment, like part of what happens, right, is in any kind of strike, things are going to have to readjust. So what the writers and the actors kind of got out of these strikes are that now companies need to basically be a little bit more transparent about what is doing well and making sure that that money is paid accordingly to some of the other talent. This seems like, right, they're making a ton of money off of other people's creative labor, that those people should be getting a share of the pie. But everything is going to have to readjust, and that's on top of all of the things that my colleague just mentioned about we're in this kind of post-venture capital moment. Things were cheaper, debt was cheaper for a moment, so we're going to see fewer productions, hopefully that are paying out better to talent, but you're going to have to be accountable to other companies at the same time. So there's a really kind of complicated economic picture that's emerging in this particular moment. Also, we should never underestimate sort of where things are at in terms of post-pandemic. I know we all like to forget what was happening. I know I kind of regularly like to forget sort of what that moment was like in all of those years, but as we emerge, adjustments were made to production, how things were shot. We thought that this might emerge as a more accessible time, but in a lot of cases, I don't know that that is the case, right? They were able to maybe be more accessible because of COVID budgets that were enabling certain practices. That being said, we know what maybe more accessibility on set looks like. They've been able to execute a few things before, so this is a time to remind people that these practices still matter in terms of on-set practices.
I think that's very well said, and I think one thing to take away from this is in a moment of uncertainty, advocating for a future that is going to be profitable and fair is possible. Whereas when things are going really well, they're like, why would I change anything, right? But we're at one of those moments where people are rethinking it. And as Kate points out, there is a model from the pandemic of it could be done better, right? It's about demonstrating that it can be done better and that it's a sustainable model. And that's a case that we'll be trying to make, right, whenever we can. But it's one that we can advocate for ourselves about as well. Let's go to the next slide. We talked a little bit about this, but we're past that post-peak TV moment, right, where we had all that free money coming into streaming platforms where it was, we want to get in early on a Netflix or a Disney Plus or any of the other pluses that you're probably paying for and forgot. That is coming to an end, and this expectation of, as Kate said, demonstrate what actually is popular and what actually is making money. When you look at those numbers, it's fascinating the variety of content that is actually popular. It's oftentimes stuff that you didn't, and Netflix, to this thing that Kate was talking about increased visibility, is actually providing numbers now, which they never used to, that says here's what people are actually watching. And you'll be like, wow, Suits. Who knew? Like that's what people want to watch. Or our alumnist, Matt Owens, is the showrunner for One Piece, which was one of the most popular shows on Netflix. But a lot of people don't know that it even exists, but it was one of the more popular ones. Next slide. And this one is also kind of sad. We kind of ended on two downers, didn't we? One, there's going to be less productions, and two, the first parts of companies that were, everyone was fired were the DEI initiatives for a lot of the major companies. So coming out of that post-pandemic moment, everybody who had been hired under a sort of DEI initiative, they were the first ones out of the room. At the same time, advocacy organizations are not going away and have an opportunity to lead as the companies start to look for external support for how they can make their companies more accessible. So it's great that we have organizations like Showability that can do that kind of work. You have anything you want to say about the diversity?
Yeah, I guess I would just say, and I think this is, maybe a transition from the last talker a little bit about thinking about sort of grassroots and community ways of developing things. I think one of the things maybe that we can think about is as peak TV is coming to the end and there's less kind of, we were at like 540 shows a year being built. That I don't know about you guys. I can't watch 400 or 540 shows a year. But as that kind of, landscape of mainstream streamers is shutting down, it might be possible for people to partner with some other modes of distribution and sort of serve their communities a bit better than maybe some of these mainstream Disney Plus kind of, shows are. Maybe it's possible to break through in a less crowded landscape.
Sort of a reemergence of an indie space where you're having the major media companies start to re-entrench and purchase one another, but then you start to have the growth of these smaller venues as well. Last slide. Yeah.
Bridget.
Hi, I am sight impaired. I'm having a difficult time following along with the speak and the slide. Could you all tell me what are you saying? What's on the slide?
So I will say, so this slide says diversity initiatives, and this is actually right here, basically just an image from an article that is about, from July of 2024, that is about kind of the shutdown of different diversity initiatives. So we aren't sort of going through the whole article and sort of the people cited, but sort of saying like, this is something that has unfortunately been happening, is that a lot of diversity initiatives at major studios have been shuttering, people are being fired. There's less support for those than there was during the pandemic and sort of like post or reemergence of civil rights movements, where all these companies felt the need to hire to try to show that they were making for a more inclusive space than they have been historically.
I'll just say that in general, the slides are a visual cue, and there's less text that needs to be read off of them. Yeah. Yeah. So just as Kate was saying, some of the major studios were creating departments designed to make their writing staffs and their actors, the pool of actors on any given show more diverse. And they were hiring, a lot of writers, that traditionally would not have been hired during the pandemic and a little bit post-pandemic. Once the investors said we would like more profit, the first way that they did cost savings, and not just the investors, but also a number of companies are trying to reduce their debt so that they can be purchased for a smaller price. And that means less payroll, which means the first people that they fired were all the people they brought in for diversity initiatives, which is gross, in case you were wondering.
And I would add, I think, like oftentimes in these studio diversity initiatives, diversity is thought of primarily in terms of race.
Yeah.
And especially in terms of race and gender. I think some of these companies might be a little bit more like, I think maybe Netflix, I think is
Yeah.
a little bit more like conscious in terms of like accessibility, or saying that they are, than some of these other companies. But primarily I think where these started out, at least in the past 5 years, we're thinking about race as the primary
Right.
motivators.
Right. Last slide. Thank you for the question.
Why don't I read the slide
Sure.
real quick?
Thank you.
Just so it's clear. So this is thinking about opportunity and outlook, and sort of different ways that maybe we ended on two kind of depressing things, right? Thinking about decline of diversity and sort of decline of like number of productions. But we can think about, so in the orange square is investment in Georgia continues. Green is a variety of films and television shows are made here. The blue is the tax incentive is still here, so productions will continue here. People will continue to come to Georgia to shoot things. And then finally, what we're seeing is investment by major talent agencies, such as United Talent Agency, which is open on Peach. One of the Peach.
You're safe if you say Peachtree.
Peachtree.
It's probably on it.
Yes, okay. And I'll turn it over to Ethan to kind of explain a little bit more about these sort of 4 points.
So yeah, we're essentially at a new moment, right? The post-pandemic, post-venture capital moment. And there's an opportunity, and even though we're at this post moment, investment continues in Atlanta. And so there's still an opportunity for us to encourage best practices and make those practices standards across the industry. And to that end, we put together a flyer that has some best practices for those of you who want to be actors, for how to do a self-tape. And on the back side of the flyer is tips for casting directors on how you can make the audition process more accessible for actors. So again, we're trying to think of ways of making these interventions and making them tangible, like a flyer you can walk away with today. I hope you enjoyed our talk and learned a few things, and we'll be happy to chat with you more afterward. Thank you. Yeah, you have a question now?
How you doing?
Good.
One area of entertainment that kind of overlooked is Georgia's video game industry.
Yeah.
Georgia produces millions of dollars in this video game itself. We all play games on console or
Yeah.
computer, but a lot of those games are made right here in Georgia.
Yeah.
From high-end studios to all these game studios that spin around the metro area that produce a lot of artists and a lot of programmers, a lot of voice actors, a lot of vocab designers that use all this skills. But that's an area that's not
I think you're exactly right, and they adjusted the tax incentive a few years ago to include video games. And I think many of the things on the handout that we're distributing applies to voice actors as well for video games. And so I do think it's important to mention, and I hope that the resources we're providing also apply to it. Yeah.
So, first of all, hi, nice to see you again. After a whole semester. So I was asking, with the current video game strike that's going on, can you talk about how that impacts disabled voice performers in the industry?
Yes. So, well, I will say, like, and I'm probably not the person that, so it would be against the strike. So video game actors, voice actors are current, and mocap actors, they do performance that is motion capture as well, are currently on strike against a particular group of video game companies. So like the actors strike last year, there might be some companies that have waivers or ones that they're not on strike against. So I would say, like, obviously check the struck work part before that. This is largely, and they have been in negotiations for over a year. They actually authorized that strike in September of last year. So they've been really, like, in this process for a really long time. This is about AI. This is about protecting voice actors who are incredibly vulnerable to AI. It is much cheaper, obviously, to use artificial intelligence generated voices. So a lot of this, I guess I would say, like, how any of the, like, the impact of this is that we're still waiting for an agreement for the voice actors or for this strike to end. It's not going to end until they get some protections for their work. It is creative work. I will say, like, I love voice actors, video game voice actors. I think they're the coolest. I think it's, like, the best community. If any of y'all are voice actors, like, I assume that you're all, like, supporting each other and doing that. Like, they seem to be less competitive, I would say, than other actors, and that's awesome to see. But they're not. That work is not always valued, and part of it's because we don't see voice actors. We don't see their bodies. We don't relate to them as, like, a human, right, on a screen or on a stage. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. It is still wait and see. Don't take any work with struck companies as a non-union actor, because that can affect your ability to get in the union later, and support voice actors.
Just one more question, and then we can go to our next group.
Hey. I have a question about 3D animation. How has AI impacted on 3D animators?
I don't think I could speak specifically to 3D animators, though I know that a lot of people in the animation space have traditionally not had kind of protections from guilds and unions, but that has started, right? That has been a push lately, and obviously everybody in the media industries is nervous about AI. That was one of the major points of the recent strike. But I'm happy to chat more about it at the end. I want to make sure that our next panel can come on up.
Well, I want to ask, if you were, like, making your own film, AI is not a you don't have to have AI as a requirement. You don't have to have it to make it look good, do you?
I wouldn't think so. No, we've been making good films for a long time without it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
You guys
All
give
right.
it up, won't you? Woo! Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Hey, I want you guys to, I know it's freezing. I know it's freezing, and I apologize for that. We've been talking to facilities since 11 o'clock this morning, and it hasn't happened yet, but hey, I want you to take your arms and rub if you can, or just kind of move in your seat, These are called old school tools. And so just want to make sure you guys kind of, and I have another trick for you. I have a trick. The trick is, if you close your eyes and imagine that you are on, that doesn't work. Okay, for those that it works for, close your eyes, imagine that you're on a hot beach. Imagine that you're on a hot beach, and then inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale as if you are there. Amazing things happen if you believe. Now, if you don't believe, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother conversation. But if you believe, then you absolutely can have a warmer It won't be hot, but it'll absolutely be warmer than what it is right now. And so with that, I want to invite our panelists to come on this stage. And Anton, if you'll come over here to the lift. You guys give it up for yourselves. Woo, you guys are informing and being informed. Oh, is that how you feel? Give it up for yourselves. Yes, thank you. Give it up for Georgia State University. Yes. And how's the volume? Because I'm going to ask these guys once we get everything situated to pull the volume up all the way. Volume okay for you all? Kind of, sort of, maybe, kind of? Mm. And for our other presenters, if you can. Okay. We've got one up here. He's got to let that up, push, yep, this one, the button up. It's got to be closed. Derek, can you assist, please, here? It's got to have a special little, no, it's got to be a, okay. This is a special thingy. Okay, when he's finished. Mic check testing. Mic check testing. You want to come up here? Up here. Okay. Okay. While we're assisting Anton to enter the stage, I want to just kind of have a show of hands. How many Georgia State students are here? Georgia State? Okay, okay. And how many folks that are non-Georgia State who's here? Non-Georgia State. All right, all right, all right, all right. We're excited again that you're here. And the presentation, have you learned something that you didn't know today before coming here today? Did you learn a little bit of something before? Because yes, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm excited about that. Also very excited that not only did we talk about the fact that accessibility is not an afterthought, meaning it goes from the development stage all the way through production, post-production, and to the distribution stage. But we also understood and got some statistics, some knowledge, and some numbers about Georgia, about Atlanta, about the film industry that's here. One of the things that we know in Georgia that we're doing is making a statement worldwide in the film industry. And so whether that be TV, film, or animation, we're making a statement. And so we realize that Georgia is leading the industry as it relates to new and innovative things, contrary probably to the people in LA. They probably would not think that, but we know that for a fact, that we are. And so we're excited about what we're doing and what we're establishing here. We're looking at making this an annual event, and so we're thrilled that you're here. Let me go ahead and introduce everybody while Anton is coming up, if you guys don't mind. From my, hold on one second, there we go. From my left, your right, we have Marty King Young. Now, let me tell you about Marty. When she's not scuba diving, Marty is a writer, director, and producer. She's currently assisting on the ABC 20th Century hit series Will Trent. She's also worked on Sweet Magnolia, Class of '09, Genesis, Aretha, and also Annabelle Comes Home, and also The Conjure 3. She frequently leads various film festival and, hold on one second, as I let Anton out. Got it. All right. As I was saying, she frequently leads various film festivals and retreats around the world, most recently in Greece, and recently was tapped to direct her first feature film. Marty is the proud mommy of Elijah and is the person in Georgia's film industry that facilitated the intentional hiring of the first production assistant on a film series in Georgia that allowed for showability, and Bobby Dodd Institute to collaborate. So you guys give it up for Marty King Young. And to her right, my left, is Miss Shayla Raquel. And Shayla is, is an indie film director, first of all, energetic, quintessential creative with a passion for storytelling, birthed and honored by her Southern roots. She is no stranger to overcoming odds, diagnosed with sickle cell anemia disease at birth and a stroke at the young age of 12. Her battle with the illness brought her closer to the art of storytelling, which unlocked her love for filmmaking. As an indie producer, Shayla works and has worked on featured, has been featured in over 40 film festivals, has received over 20 awards to date, including the Student Emmy from the National Academy of TV Arts and Sciences, the National Capital Chapter. She's also shadowed directing assistants with ABC Disney for the Wonder Years. She's also directed a short project for the city of Los Angeles for the John Singleton Embrace Initiative, which was also given the nod for a 7-figure budget to expand into a feature film. She's also the lead director in the premiere show for Keke Palmer's Key TV network, and since has garnered over, which has also garnered over 1 million views. In 2020 and 2023, she was a Series X at Shonda Rhimes Women's Director Mentorship Program finalist, and she's won numerous Indie Award grants, and also participated in the Creative Global campaign with clients such as American Cancer Society, Procter & Gamble, Design Essentials, Facebook, Meta, and more. She's a proud graduate of Florida A&M University and has a master's in fine arts and film and electronic media. Shayla Raquel. And to her right, my left, is Martha Marty Enger. Martha, as a set producer assistant for assistant directors on major productions such as Marvel, Warner Brothers, and Disney, she has worked beyond many roles in the industry, is a passionate filmmaker with a background in directing cinema and acting. As a deaf individual, her goal is to use her platform to promote diversity and inclusion in Hollywood. Marty believes that the entertainment industry needs more deaf and disabled voices to tell authentic stories that reflect the experiences of our community, to break down barriers and educate others about the deaf culture and more inclusive and accessible industry for all. Her journey has taught her the importance of perseverance and resilience in the face of systemic oppression. It's crucial to focus on the talent and skills rather than the disability. By working hard and advocating in the industry for persons with disabilities, she likes to inspire others and pave the way for future generations for the deaf and disabled filmmakers. Assisting Marty with ASL today as Karen Graham of Sign One News. And there's Karen right there. All right, and without further ado, the next person is Anton Clifford. And Anton, paralyzed quadriplegic actor based out of Atlanta who became paralyzed in a car accident at the age of 16 through sheer hard work and determination. Anton has defied the odds and strives to overcome them. He does not let wheelchair define him and hopes to inspire people not to give up on their dreams no matter what. Anton has been featured on Queen Sugar, Nickelodeon, NBC pilot for called Dangerous Moms. Also, he's done most recently voiceover for Google. He's got in 2025, there's going to be a takeover, a film called Takeover on Netflix. And then he's done hundreds, I want to say hundreds of commercials. And so you guys give it up for Anton. Now, I'm going to take a seat and be able to ask some questions because I've got questions, but I also want to leave space for you guys to ask questions if you guys have any. So I'm going to come over here so I can see you. Now, this is a conversation, and I'm going to be asking them a couple of questions, but we also can, because I have the mic, ask you to, if you have some questions after I've asked them, after they've answered the questions, I invite you to come here and I can hand you the mic and you can ask them questions. And I'm mindful because our presenters have a hard out at 5 o'clock. So I know we've got a mixer and I know many of you want to talk with some of them, and so we want to be mindful of that. So can someone let me know what time it is so I can keep honest with the time? What time? 3:41. Okay, 3:41. I need you to let me, look, just kind of give me a, when, so that I can know kind of when it's 4:30. Okay. Now, first for our panelists that have disabilities, collaboration. I want to ask you guys. I'm sorry, I've got my other notes here. Sorry. There. We've heard a lot about making sure that accessibility is not an afterthought. And from development to production to pre-production to distribution. Whether that's in cinemas or now in homes. So from a collaboration standpoint, what advice do you have for building a collaborative, building production work relationships, whether that be at whatever stage, and then how can production teams better accommodate you before, during, and after? Anton, I'm going to start with you, and then go to Marty.
Hey, I'm Anton Clifford, and the advice I would give to build a production relationship is to follow them on social media now. Right now, we're in a day of social media where you can reach out to them, and then it can happen more in an organic way when it goes that way, really. You can DM them your projects. Like I would work on short films, and I would DM different casting directors, and then I would find out those same casting directors would start sending me auditions and stuff like that. And me and my agent, we had it like a teamwork thing. She does her part, and I would do my part. So yeah, I would say definitely use social media in this day and age as your advantage right now.
What would you say about how can production teams better accommodate you on set? Before, during, and after?
Well, me so far, I've been grateful the way they've been able to move. Of course, I'm not going to be able to get into a trailer because I'm paralyzed and I'm in a wheelchair, and that would take too much trouble. But they've been making accommodations. They'll put me up in a hotel room, and then usually they'll keep me in a room, maybe on set, and they'll call me in when it's time for me to film my scenes. And yeah, I mean, they always have a nurse on set as well, in case anything is going on, and they have somebody assigned to me, so if they could continue to do that, that'd be great.
Awesome. Okay, Marty?
Oh, I agree with Anton. Well, first of all, let me back up. My name is Martha Anger, and I want to do an audio description first for some people who may be blind. Again, my name is Martha. I have olive skin with freckles. I'm wearing white glasses, and I'm wearing a gray hat. I have on a black vest, a brown long sleeve shirt, and gray pants. All right. I'm deaf, and you're welcome.
I agree with Anton 100%. Again, it depends on the context, actually. It depends on individually who you're working with. You know, typically, in my experience, if you communicate with the team before, you know, that's kind of normal, so that they're not shocked when it comes to accessibility. I've experienced a wide range of that. First thing, being deaf, I work a little bit harder, to be honest with you. I show people that I can do a lot of things. Yeah, first of all, I'm always looking for jobs, I'm always auditioning, and I just show up on set, and I just let them know I'm deaf, right off the bat. Typically, I may not say anything sometimes, I just do my job. And they'll say hey to me, and I'll start signing, and then and they're like, oh my gosh, she's deaf. And the reason I did that, sometimes it puts them on the spot, and it avoids discrimination. If they just see me as myself, you know, that's just kind of how the system works sometimes. So I'm just kind of playing with the system, if you will. You know, that's my experience. Fortunately, it's been positive so far. And one, because I'm kind of outspoken too. I'm not afraid to approach anyone. I know people may be clueless about deaf culture, and that's fine. But it's my job to educate as well sometimes. But at the same time, but I see you, what are you gonna do? You gotta approach people, show them that, hey, I'm a person, and then just go ahead with the communication process. And also I share, you know, I prefer for them to look at my talent, not my disability. Just look at my talent first, particularly when I'm on a team, and then you'd have to worry about accommodations later. Just look at my talent. And then I can give them, like for example, like Anton was just saying, I agree with you. Most of the time there's a trailer, you know, there's a star trailer. There's no accessibility for that. And I'm thinking, come on. You know, maybe the hotel, that's fine. But now you're separate from the team. You know, you're not a part of the group. That's not fair, of course. We're all a family when we're on set. We're all working together. We don't want to exclude anyone. So they may need to improve a little bit in that area on the set. And so I was thinking, you're right, Anton, you're 100% correct. So, you know, I'm deaf. Again, I can't speak for all deaf people, understand that. I'm an individual. But if you hire me, maybe as a director, as an actor, make sure you bring an interpreter for me so that we can communicate. That's so important. You know, you can't, in the film world, you can't afford to have miscommunication because that can cost money. And so at the same time, you know, if you hire a PA, you know, like the professors were just saying, no, somebody was saying that. Oh, Elizabeth was saying that. You know, above the line and below the line, you know. So I'm sorry, I'm just running off at the mouth. My apologies. You know, I talk a lot. My apologies. So again, so I just want to share real quick the best experience that I have, and it's with the movie Echo, the Marvel movie with Echo, maybe 2 years ago. Echo, you guys know that series? It was perfect. Now that, by the way, was just overwhelming. I was so surprised. I've been in the film industry a very long time, since 2009, and I've never seen anything like this before. The industry, they invested in this project for accommodations. Accommodations were off the chain. For example, Alakwa Cox, the actress, the star actress of Echo, she had no acting experience. But Marvel looked and they wanted to find someone to accommodate that role. They offered it to her. They made her a star. Just like they made accommodations for Anton with the wheelchair, they asked her what were her expectations in the beginning. What did she need? And Alakwa said, I want everybody, the crew, everybody, above the line and below the line, to learn ASL. And Marvel said, yep, okay. And they provided her, and they made everybody take classes from the director. For 6 weeks, everybody had to take ASL classes. And I was amazing. For 2 weeks. It was awesome. So that's above and below the line. And I was shocked. I was like, who is that? Yeah, she demanded it as a star, and Marvel made sure it happened. And so we all have that opportunity to do that. Just put it out there. I don't care if people feel uncomfortable about it, just be direct and put it out there. I need blah, 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 blah. Make it so. There's your accommodations.
Okay, yes, it says. Now, thank you.
I'm sorry, I gotta save mine. Okay, I have panelists with me.
Thank you, thank you. Now, Shayla, I know that you have an invisible disability, non-apparent disability. You want to speak to that from a director point of view, but also a person working with an invisible disability for the community?
And I'm going to use that to answer the second part of your question.
Okay.
But for the first part, I wanted to piggyback on Marty and Anton and just talk about collaboration in retrospect to networking, right? You all are here because you want to network. You most likely want to be a part of the film industry, or you are a part of the film industry and things of that sort. And when you're networking with people, you're networking with them in hopes to collaborate with them, correct? And so I think, we talk about collaboration a lot and what to do when it comes to collaboration, but we don't talk about the maintenance of that and how hard that could also be when it comes to accessibility. And I want to just talk a bit to that as well. Maintaining your network and maintaining your collaboration, maintaining your network and maintaining the people the relationships that you're collaborating with, because that's just as important as well. And sometimes that can be daunting, especially when you are a person with a disability. And so maintaining, he mentioned social media and things of that sort. Checking in, I know that sometimes it may be difficult for us to want to speak to people on a consistent basis, or to email people on a consistent basis, especially when we may feel like we are being cumbersome, and that's never ever the case. So it's very, very important when it comes to collaborating and come to networking to make sure that you're maintaining those connections and networks, because that is how you continue to work horizontally and continue to move. And then you spoke about me as a person with an invisible disability, and what does that look like, and how to just make sure that I just want to repeat that second question so that I can make sure.
Sure. I asked, how can production teams better accommodate you before, during, and after?
Yeah, and as a person with an invisible disability, being vocal is so important when it comes to that. If I am not vocal, most people will automatically assume, and I think there was a speaker in the beginning who talked about assumptions when it comes to people with disabilities. I have to be vocal. I have to advocate for myself in a lot of instances. I have to say, hey, it might be a little too cold in here for a person with sickle cell anemia. Or, I definitely need, this is triggered by stress, so you may see me go off a bit. You may see me take time. Being vocal about those things in the beginning, so talking about those phases and starting from the beginning and saying, hey, these are the things that I deem necessary in order for me to perform at my best, which I want to do for you because that is what you hired me for. Being vocal is how I make sure that I do that, and so that it's already made plain and simple, and continuing to be vocal as you continue through the process of the job that you were hired for.
Awesome. Thank you. And now, Marty, you can bring a double perspective on that same question as a mom of a talented person that has a disability, and also from an advocator who's on the set, showrunner, director, producer, from that standpoint. So could you offer some perspective on, one, collaboration, and then two, how can production teams better accommodate?
Sure. Well, first of all, going back to the whole trailer thing real quick. They do have trailers for people with disabilities with ramps that raise and lower, so you can actually ask for that in your deal memo. So talk to your agent about that, because that's not cool. If they're not even offering that, you need to make them aware that you know about it, because sometimes you have to just add some fuel to the fire and get them, put them on notice in a nice way, of course. But they do exist. Don't let them ever tell you no. So as for collaborating, I do a lot of my own work, and I make it a point to hire people with disabilities. Like my son is on the autism spectrum, so he'll come out and he'll do the clapboard. I'll have people like in accounting, we have a lot of people with autism and really good with numbers, we'll have them come out and do that. We've had people with Down syndrome come out, and they're just wonderful to be on set. And I've noticed that the more people that we've had in this particular demographic or category, that the people on set who can be kind of terse and snotty sometimes will rein it on in because they don't want to be seen as a complete poop head. So I only have nice sets. I only have positivity on my sets. I don't allow any type of bullying. I don't allow any sort of thing. So in order for me to be able to tell people or be able to tell people in my other job when I'm not doing my own things, I have to walk things out in front of people. I have to show them that things can be done, right? So because of that, I was able to get people hired onto NDEAM, I got people hired onto Disney, I got people hired onto FX because I said, you know, the number one, or only 1% of the workforce allowed to work are people with disabilities. So why can't we have somebody here? Why can't we do this? And so what I was able to do was get a lot of people on the COVID team, because nobody's gonna yell at somebody with a disability on the COVID team. And so there was a 6 feet, that was their job, and they did a great job. And then I had got a guy as a PA in the art department. And all it took was me saying something, okay? That's all it takes, is knowing where your power is and wherever you are and just saying something. Now, I'm not saying walk into the producer's meeting while everybody's there and just go, hey, this is what you need to do. I approached it like, you know, it would really be great, and because you're all really great people, and I love working with you so much. This would be great PR for the show. You always have to hit them where the money is. And this would be great PR for the show, is if we had some people, you know, that you hired in these different positions, and they were like, oh, that's really good. You know, create a memo. So I did. And then they said, okay, pitch it to the executive producers. And I did. And I said, hey, we have this wonderful opportunity. Is this something that you would be open for? And you had the execs from Disney and 20th and everybody going, oh my gosh, this is a great idea, let's do it. So collaboration, all it takes is a voice speaking up. I'm working on a series called Will Trent right now. And this season, there's an episode where they're doing a press conference. And I said, they were in one of the meetings, and I said, hey, you know who they normally have at press conferences? ASL interpreters. And they said, oh my gosh, that's right. And the showrunners wrote it into the script, and we were able to hire an ASL interpreter. So it's all about just knowing when to speak up, having candor, and showing people just how to be people. It's just being human, you know? That's pretty much it.
Thank you. That's awesome. Awesome. Now, starting with you, Marty, as a showrunner director, the next question is about challenges and opportunities. And we kind of touched on that a little bit, but what are the biggest challenges and opportunities in filmmaking that are accessible to all audiences, and how can we overcome these challenges and capitalize on these opportunities?
Challenges for everybody?
Well, for sure, I'm a firm believer that opportunities for the disability community help the entire community. And so focusing in on the disability community because it's going to help everyone.
Sure. So the thing that I'm finding right now is that we had a strike. We had a strike, and everybody lost on the strike, except for we've got some more things. We've got rules in place now, which will make things better, and is going on to make things better. However, because of the strike, a lot of projects have moved out of this country, and they're in the UK and Ireland and Scotland because We have another group, the Teamsters, who have just gotten a new ratification, and they're starting to ask for more money to do things that they were already doing, things that are actually already in their job description. So I'm watching things pull back in a way because people are getting a little greedy, and so we're having problems with that. So that's a thing. Because of the strike, with the writers and the actors, now you have agents who are solely focused on only getting their clients work because they haven't worked.
Mm.
So that's a problem too. That's another hurdle.
Mm.
And even though right now there's a great opening to be able to have this wonderful platform to push for people with disabilities, we're finding that it's, even though yes, that is happening, the shows are drying up and going over here. So it's just harder at this moment just because of the strikes.
They're drying up going overseas.
Overseas because it's cheaper and they don't have to deal with unions.
Mm. Now, because Georgia is not a union, does that make it more attractive?
It's not a union state, but for the productions that come here, once they start using SAG-AFTRA, it's a union production, so they have to use union people.
Ah, okay, okay. Shayla?
And indie standpoint, like an outside looking in. And I think a big challenge that I am seeing is trying to make sure that above the line or executives do not stop giving opportunities to people with disability as soon as they hit adversity. So just giving a bit of background from me, I just recently shot a project called The Off Brands, and it was about two high school students who have chronic illnesses, who want to, it's a coming of age, who want to just be known in their high school for anything other than being sick, right? And so one of the characters is a person who uses a wheelchair. And in that, I knew that even with me having grant, and when you have grants, you have to deal with grant panels, right? And so with grant panels, that means they're basically like executive producers. You have to answer to them because they're the ones that are giving you the money. And so with that, I had a character who is a person who uses a wheelchair, and I was very adamant about having a person who had the experience or have used a wheelchair in order for them to play that particular character. And we spent months looking, and I remember the grant panel coming to me and saying, hey, you either need to change the character to a able-bodied person because you're having difficult, or you're going to have to cast an able-bodied person to play that character, or a person without a disability to play that character. And I remember like saying like, no, I still have about 3 or 4 months to find this person. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do either or. And we did, me and my casting director, we did a national search for a person because we wanted to make sure that we gave this person who used a wheelchair an opportunity. And we did. We found someone, and she was amazing. And we talked with her. So going back to the presentation that happened before where they talked about doing things from the beginning, we asked her about the accommodations she needed. We asked her what would she need on set. We made sure we budgeted for those things. And she was a phenomenal asset to that set, and it brought an authenticity to what we shot. It brought a whole nother dynamic to it. And so that goes back to and that was from indie. So if we, as independent filmmakers with grant money, is very, 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 very small. So if we as independent filmmakers with that small amount of money were able to still find people and give opportunities, then we feel, especially as independent filmmakers looking and wanting to, be a part of the industry, we feel that they should be able to give those opportunities as well and just plan for accordingly for it. So,
thank you. Anton, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, and one thing to add on to that too, like the direction that we're going in the industry right now too, and I'm grateful that I could be a part of, is that, now casting directors are starting to audition people that are disabled for parts that are not necessarily written for somebody disabled. I booked like the Netflix movie that's coming out next year or whatever. The character was not written for somebody that was in a wheelchair, but they auditioned me still, and then they changed it. So if we can keep doing that, and then they can come together and they can think like, hey, why can the character not be in a wheelchair, or maybe have autism? Because we exist in the world where we have regular jobs. Some of us have relationships with other people. I mean, and that needs to be represented on television. So I'm grateful to see that going. And then me and my agent, she submits me for a lot of roles that are not written for wheelchair characters, and like 3 of them I booked where, I mean, they've gone with, they've changed it, because seeing Anton for Anton instead of Anton in a wheelchair, you know?
Wonderful. I want to just kind of go into kind of the next grouping, but before I do that, I want to also emphasize that the reality of self-identification in the film industry, because while Anton has an agent that is looking and working with him and can give him and look for opportunities that are beyond the wheelchair descriptor, everybody doesn't have that. And though if someone like Shayla is looking for a wheelchair actor or a deaf actor, then they won't know you if you don't let it be known. You must let it be known, because in the industry now, yes, there are more opportunities because they're looking for persons, but if you don't let it be known, then they won't know your uniqueness. They won't know your strength. We're not talking about weaknesses, we're talking about your strengths. And so want to emphasize that that is so very necessary, because while some films are willing to change for a character, I don't know if all of them are willing to change for a character. And so that opportunity to identify, and by identify, I'm also saying your image, your photo, not just the descriptor, but your photo, for it to be very clear that. So anyway, this is for the entire panel. The future of accessibility. What do you see as the future of accessibility in films? Specifically, what are some emerging trends and technologies that could make a significant impact? And I'm going to start with Marty. Anton just said some terrific things, so I'm going to start with you, Marty.
First of all, real quick, let me just say something real quick about, I know we got to save time as well.
No, no.
Hold on. Oh, got it, the future. Okay. It's really up to Hollywood, to be honest with you. It doesn't matter how hard we work, show what we can do, what we've been through. It's technically up to Hollywood. Again, just from my experience, how they found me, like for Marvel, for Echo, the only reason they saw that they wanted someone who was different. And so they hired me because I was deaf. I could sign with people on the set. There was an ASL producer. There was a deaf PA. And so we kind of all worked together. And it was really cool because I want to share something that Marvel did that was really successful, because they decided to hire a deaf writer. They decided to have a deaf writer in the room with the other writers. And so they had 4. They had 2 deaf writers, and they had a Native American counselor there as well, or consultant there as well, to make sure everyone was collaborating together during the production process. And then they brought in an ASO producer on set, and that shadowed with the director. And it was really successful. It was more authentic, culturally. And again, like you said, Marty, what were you saying about the client? What did you do? Your client? I'm sorry, I went off topic, my bad. Here's the point. The future for accessibility. It's really Hollywood. It's really on them. We already have shown what we can do. what we're capable of. And so you just show up and do the work. It's your work ethic when you're on set. You know, how you present yourself. I'm friendly, I'm kind to everyone. Everyone knows me. And they're like, oh, wow, she's pretty fascinating. And they come up to me to ask questions. Some of them ask me some stupid questions. But, but I'm always, I don't want to make them feel embarrassed or anything. And I'm like, it's okay, it's all right. Just ask. You know, it may be awkward. And that's part of the healthy conversation, to learn about each other's cultures so that you have a more open mind and find solutions for accommodations. Just sit, keep your mouth shut, and just listen to us. And we'll provide you and give you everything you need to know. And that's a secret to success. So maybe we can try that.
Thank you. Shayla, any thoughts on some emerging trends or technologies?
I'm sorry, I gotta learn how to cut my hands off. I talk too much. I'm so sorry. Trends in technology, or any emerging I'm
trends.
Sorry, real quick, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you hire somebody that's deaf or someone that has a disability. Just make sure they're in the room. That's the bottom line. Just make sure in the room to represent the culture. That's key. Just share. And the collaboration when you're in the room. Okay.
Any emerging trends or technologies that would make a significant impact in the industry? And Marty, I'm coming over to you to ask that too.
So there's two things I would love to speak to. One, she just said that, you know, we're already doing the work, and that's the indie market, right? Like us and of course we want to be a part of the industry one day, but there's so much power in continuously doing the work, networking with each other. This is a production company within this room, networking with each other and creating stories that you want to see, creating stories that gives people opportunities, creating stories that shows diversity and inclusion and different dynamics. And there is such power in that as well. And not only is the power is that you're giving each other opportunities and experience, but also it helps you get seen. It's how Hollywood see, and we talked about that a bit, about being vocal by just creating the art and relying on each other and creating that type of dynamic. That is one way that we all can just work together, and also a trend that's happening. We talked about how now the microscope has come to the indie market because things have slowed, right? This is the best time is now. You can shoot 4K with your iPhone. I know we hate hearing that because we need as much resources as possible, but there is opportunity there. So that's one thing, that a trend that I'm seeing. And then another one is before I became a full-time director, I was a branch chief for the Office of Diversity and Inclusion for a federal government agency. And one of the things that we talked about all the time when I was a branch chief is that about giving people opportunity to fully participate in the entire employment life cycle, right? And when you talk about the employment life cycle, you talk about recruitment, you talk about hiring, diversity in hiring, you talk about promotions, retentions, and things of that sort. But the part that gets missed is training and learning, right? And that's a huge trend or thing that I'm hoping to also see even more of that's happening within within the people with disability community is seeing us do the learning and the training as well, so that there is absolutely no excuse when it comes to being a part of that job market. I'm seeing a lot of major studios and industries doing PA type work for specifically people with disabilities, doing directorial programs and producing programs for specifically people with disabilities that is now giving people the access in order to get past that barrier of the training and learning to move into the more so the recruitment, the hiring process. And so those are two things that I'm seeing and I'm hoping to see more of.
Thank you. I do want to just kind of emphasize the training because there's a misconception that you can just be discovered. and you don't invest any effort in your own training, you have to take classes, you have to take training, you have to, whatever it is, as with any career, in order to get your in the door, in order to move up, you have to increase your levels of skill. And so it's an anomaly to assume that you're just going to be discovered and they're going to invest in you when you've not invested in yourself. So just want to put that out there. Okay, Marty. Oh, yes. What are some emerging trends or technologies that could make a significant impact?
I'm just going to say, of trends, it's really great because the more and more we talk about it, the more and more I bring it up, the more and more that I get people on board to think it's a great idea, the more and more doors are opening. So that trend is just word of mouth and pushing all the time, and not being aggressive about it, just being like, oh, this would be a really great opportunity, or a really great opportunity to enrich your life at the same time. So there's that. As for technology, I work on a huge production, and if we have somebody who needs something, they bend over backwards to make sure they have it. That's how I know about the trailers, because we had an amputee last season, and he couldn't get into the trailer, so they brought him one that had a raise on it. So that's very fortunate that I'm there where if somebody says, I need this or that, that's what you get. I also worked on a show called Sweet Magnolias. We had a deaf actress come in, and it was during COVID, and she had to be fitted and wear a mask. So they made sure she had clear masks so they could read. Everybody had clear masks so she could read their lips, which I thought was very impressive for them. So as the more and more we chatter, the more and more we talk about it, the more and more we push, the more and more we shine spotlights on all of you guys out here, doors are opening. It just might be that one little plug in the dam before it just all gives way and opens up so many doors for people. But it's the constant poking and saying, I'm not going away with this. That's the only trend I can see.
Thank you. I think that that's so important to notice. Everybody here is pressing and speaking up, not only for themselves, but for others. A lot of times we think that somebody else is going to do it. Somebody else is going to say it. You want the opportunity, so you need to say it. It's kind of common sense, but sometimes sense is not common. And so we have to recognize that if not you, who? If not you, who? And oftentimes within the disability community, I have found that there's gotten to be a comfort zone, and that's odd. The ADA is only 34 years old. Now, mind you, I realize that let me not say everybody, I'd say more than half of the people in here are under 34, which means it's been around since you've been here on the earth. However, it's not adequate. This existing room speaks to that. It's not adequate, so there's so much more that needs to be done. And so I see Marty's hand here, so that, yes.
Speaking of the ADA, this is a perfect example how it's just been a struggle. I just kind of saw it over there with the lift in the corner. Yeah, it's a perfect example, The ADA, they do have a lot of accommodations, but speaking of comfort zone, because that's exactly how all of us got here, if you will. We were outside of our comfort zone, quite honestly. And I grew up, I always dreamed of making movies. I wanted to change the world and let the world see it through deaf eyes and collaborations and the community and the culture. And how you make that happen? You got to get outside your comfort zone, because the deaf world is very, very small. It's a very, very tight community. We don't tend to stray far from the community. And so sometimes, again, I'm not speaking about for all deaf people, but this is just me. This is my personal. I am very curious about everything. I like stepping outside of my comfort zone and just kind of gambling, if you will, and just keep going. I sometimes forget I'm deaf. I'm just going after my dreams, quite honestly. I'm outside of my comfort zone. I've got that confidence. I'm a self-advocate as well, so I do feel it's a little bit easier now than it was when I was growing up. I had to work really hard for accommodations and accessibility and interpreters and the film industry. But now, it's a little easier. It's a bigger industry now. It's a little easier to get in, and they see me, and they're not looking at my deafness, if you will. They just see I'm just a filmmaker, and that's been my experience. I really, quite honestly, haven't experienced a lot of discrimination, which is kind of weird. I've heard a lot about the oppression and things like that, but I got in the industry and I haven't experienced it yet, and that really kind of impressed me, honestly, with Marvel, and I was just hoping that Hollywood in general would follow kind of the example that Marvel has set on accommodations and providing 100% accommodations and accessibility. It's a beautiful thing. I want that to happen for the future. That's what I'd love to see. Not just for deaf, but for the disability community in general. Just hire writers, put them in the room. Hollywood is running out of ideas. They just keep remaking movies over and over again. Yeah, you want something new? Hire some new ideas and new people, new storytellers. Yeah, that's more authentic.
Love it. Thank you. Yes. Now that leads to our last thing. And if others want questions, come on up while we're on our last question, which deals with advocacy. And that is, I want to just kind of mention that within the disability community, disability is not a niche population. It is not a niche group. Recognizing that the disability community is made up of individuals and not a collective set of people, but 26% of the US population have a disability. That's 1 in 4. If you add one family member to that number, that's more than half of the US population that has a connection to the disability community. Let's just sit with that number for a minute. More than half, 52% of the US population are connected to the disability community. Now, the disability community has a discretionary income. Discretionary, meaning that means after all of the bills are paid, meaning your house note, your food and everything, that's for the disability community has a spending power of $21 billion. That's larger than the Black and Latino population combined. And so there's no reason why the film industry should not be investing to reach this population. They're not aware, and so we need for folks to advocate. Advocate for yourself and for your friends. Speak up for your friends. And so with that, before we go to the first question, I want you guys to speak, if you'd like to, on how can we advocate greater accessibility in the film industry, and also what can we do as individuals and as collectives to drive change. Who would like to go first? Anton?
I mean, we all talked about, everybody on this panel, we all kind of said things that all go into this right here, but to me, my thing is to, we just need to keep representing. Like, every script that I get, when I read a script, I'm always thinking to myself, there's going to be somebody that's going to, if I get this role, there's going to be a kid that's going to see me out there, or a person that's with a disability is going to see themselves represented through me. So that really motivates me to keep working hard in the craft, and you can't be scared to take a chance and go out. Like, I mean, I went to acting class. I had people stare at me funny. I had people that didn't want to be my scene partner at first because they didn't know if I could, even speak. And for me, I spent 16 years of my life on my legs. I wasn't born paralyzed. So, I mean, I think the same way I used to think before I was paralyzed. Like, I'm still mentally right in my mind still, and we all have something to offer. So, yeah, that's the way I look at it, like that. We just need to go out there. Any disability that you have, go out there and be your own advocate. You just can't be scared to take that chance, because you have to believe in yourself. You have what it takes. And you really have to really believe it and just be afraid to take a leap of faith. Don't be afraid to take a leap of faith and go out there. And you never know where it could take you, really. Honestly, the things that I'm doing, I never really imagined that I would be doing. I didn't grow up in my life wanting to be an actor. I had a friend that was actually one of my cousins that died in the accident that I was in, that died on my shoulder in the back seat. One of his friends reached out to me, and she was taking acting classes, and she said, Anton, why don't you try acting? And I told her no the first time. And she said, Anton, why don't you try acting? 2 months later, I told her no the second time. Third time, I said, oh, all right, I'll give it a try. I was like, who wants to see somebody in a wheelchair represented on TV? Like, she was like, Anton, you'll be surprised. So I did it, and then a year later, I got my first, Ava DuVernay gave me my first role on Queen Sugar. So you never know. And then now I'm addicted to the craft itself because I know that it's bigger than me. I mean, you're out there representing a community that needs to be heard. So every time I do any audition, I give 110%, and that's what keeps me motivated. So you just can't be afraid to go out there and just take a chance. 'Cause like I said, you never know where it could take you.
So go on the other end with Marty, and then we'll come.
So for advocacy-wise, obviously use your voice where you can and speak up. I'm actually really proud of the crew that I'm with because I just brought it up a couple of times, and now the showrunner like, can we add a person with a disability to this? I mean, this is what normal looks like. This is what, so they're very good on hiring diversity and looking into things like that. So that's number one. Number two, advocate for yourself in terms of if you want to make a movie, make a movie. It can be, short films are a thing. It can be 3 minutes, it can be 10 minutes. Make a movie, throw it on YouTube, or go to filmfreeway.com and submit it to all the free festivals you can and say, this is my disability, this is my job, this is what I want to do, and they will look at that. They will open doors for you. But don't sit there and wait for somebody else to come in and do it for you because nobody will. This industry is great, but it's very self-serving, and you have to serve yourself sometimes. And if that means you self-advocate and you push, and put it back out there, make TikToks, get it out there, get a following doing that. You'd be surprised. We've hired people from TikTok to be in our show just because they had such a great following and they liked their look. They liked how they represented things. They loved their humor. So don't stop just because, or don't look at a closed door like it's locked. Okay? Sometimes you have to knock. Sometimes you just have to kick it open. But you can do it. It's possible.
Thank you. Shayla.
I think they all so eloquently said everything, but I'll just add, television and film has always been a vessel for change. Television and film has always been that medium where it could truly create change. It could truly just change dynamics. It changes people's hearts. It creates empathy, right? And so there's so many like different movies and television shows where there is like tangible examples of that happening. When Bambi came out, laws got passed in the protection of deers because of what happened with Bambi. When the movie that Spike Lee did, I think it was Four Girls, had came out, it impacted so much. The FBI had reopened the case of those men who had bombed that church and found those men years later, all because of the movie that he made. So if television and film has that much impact, it could do that for the disability community as well. We need to utilize it. And so I'm saying all that just to echo everything that we said. We have to use our voice. We have to advocate for ourselves, and we have to push the door open in order for us to be a part of that industry, because that industry is such a vessel for change.
Wonderful. And Marty.
Okay, lastly, sometimes we got to go all the way and meet people halfway sometimes. I agree with all of you, what you're saying. I don't want to copy everything you guys have already said. But the world, sometimes we have to meet each other halfway, and that can change the world. But right now, we are the ones doing the reaching and showing and showing and showing. And to people that I have a disability and that I'm deaf, but I was able to influence them by just working one-on-one, being friendly. Just be yourself first and foremost. That's key. Just be yourself. That's it. Walk in, you're like, yo, what's up? Yeah.
and they might be fascinated. And it could change their perspective, you know, when you show who you are.
Awesome. We've got a question.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Annette Albright. Yes, I do have a disability. I may not look like it, but I do. But I'm speaking out for my son. He has autism spectrum with Asperger, and that boy's so smart. I mean, if you was to see him, you ain't no little boys. I mean, 19-year-olds, but you would never know unless you ask him. But he's real good with roadblocks, graphic design, computers. I mean, everything. So I've been trying. He's in a Georgia Vocational Rehab Program. He does volunteering for Paws Atlanta. He loves cats. He loves dogs. So my thing, I'm the go-getter of trying to get him in the film industry, different programs, mentors. I'm doing everything. So if I can get that little extra help from somebody, I was listening to you, and I'm like, wow, you know, that sounds pretty good. So if I can get something from my email, or you know, I can do the labor work, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll let them know what my situation is, and if they can help out, cool, you know. Oh, one more thing. If you are in the movie industry, do you have to have a what they call those people that works with you? You know, yeah, agent. Because I feel agents can steer you wrong too. So how do you know if you can trust that person? That's a scary issue.
Okay, well, let's take one of those at a time.
I can answer that. I can definitely answer that question.
Okay.
That's so important. I'm happy that you asked that question. I just want to share my experience. I'm a self-advocate as well, and so I did a lot of research on my own. I searched and did a lot of research, and a lot of people turned me down. I'm still looking for an agent, but then recently, perfect timing, when I moved here to Atlanta, there's a talent agency. Her name is Jill. She set it up. She set up her agency. Oh, she said this was the Black Mecca. It's a hot spot here in Atlanta. And so she set up her agency. She wanted some new talent. And, you know, I didn't say anything about being deaf or having a disability. And so it was important to just keep your eye on agents and look on what they're doing, what they're posting. Maybe they have open casting calls, meaning they're looking for new talent. And so that may be the first step in reaching out. Hey, I'm here. I'm Martha, explaining who I am. And then maybe they'll contact you, and then you'll meet the right person. You maybe can chat with them and kind of get a vibe for them. And so I just kind of showed up. I said I was deaf, and I had and she'd already provided accessibility. And I kind of self-advocated for myself. She was hearing. I let her know that I signed. I didn't expect them to pick me, and they picked me. They cast me. Again, speaking of what Anton was saying. Yeah, he wasn't looking for just wheelchair roles. It's just any role. You know, I'm the same way. It's the same thing for me. I'm not just looking for deaf roles. That's very limited, quite honestly. We just want any role, quite honestly, just to act. And I did audition for a hearing role once. And they casted me. And the director and the writer was like, oh my gosh. And so they decided to change it to a deaf role for me. It's just how you present yourself, that's all. And that's how you would that's how you impact and impress people. And they're like, hey, I want to represent you. Again, yeah, it's kind of hard to get an agent. I worked, oh my God, so hard, looking for an agent, going to open casting calls, contacting people to come in person, for me to come in person, and I was just ready. Just like Anton, I'm giving 110%. I'm ready when the opportunity shows up. And you'd be surprised. The agents would be surprised. They'll say, I want to represent you. And, you know, I was really proud of myself.
Okay, I'm going to Shayla and then come to you, Anton.
And I'm going to just add on to that, right? So I have representation. And the misconception with having representation is that the work ends as soon as you get it, right? No, in fact, the work triples. Because it's one, as they stated there, it's really, really hard to get management agent representation. But two, their work is like them getting paid is contingent on you. And most times, like they have other clients. So you're going to have to continuously do even more work in order to like, one, advocate for yourself and make yourself seen. And then when there's like barriers with that, that just makes it increasingly harder. So I always, I get a lot of like mentees and I get a lot of students who come to me like, well, how do you get an agent? How do you get an agent? And it's just like, just do the work and agents will find you. But just know that it does not, there's no like this miracle thing where like you get signed by an agent and then everything just, life just changes and now you're a millionaire, you're a star. That's not what happens. In fact, you will probably spend the next few years still just doing the work that you were doing prior to being signed, and still having to make sure that you're advocating for yourself to be noticed, which means don't even pay attention, just do the work and people are going to notice you regardless.
Thank you. The net to me is that the agent
Amen.
works for you as you're working. If you're looking for the agent to do the work for you, that's the wrong relationship. They're not going to find jobs for you. They're going to find opportunities for you as you're working. So Anton just said, what was it?
Teamwork.
Teamwork.
Yeah, team effort. You had to pitch yourself. Like I told you, I send emails to other casting directors myself, and then my agent does the same thing. So it's a teamwork thing. You have to be able to help each other. I mean, and one thing I would say for any actor that's looking for an agent with a disability is when if you make it that far to even have a conversation with the agent, make sure the agent's not signing you just because you're disabled. Like, just make sure it's really, I mean, you could fill out the vibe and see if you feel in your heart it's the right choice, go with it. I mean, because some agents will sign you just because you're a bucket, you're a roster spot, and say we don't have one of those, like a Pokemon card, like, you know. So just make sure it's not one of those situations.
Yes, Marty.
Okay, so my question to you, Mom.
Oh, you're leaving out. She's got a question for you. She has something. Okay.
Oh, okay. My question for anybody is, first of all, for her was, does he want to act? Does he want to work in this industry? That's my question for you. Does he want, or did you want that for him?
He kind of wants that.
Kind of?
I mean,
That's going to make a huge difference. It'll make a huge difference.
I mean, if I just ask him, I don't want to just like, I want you to do this because
Sure.
I want you to do it. I just ask him like, hey.
Does he want to work as an actor or behind the scenes?
He wrote a lot of, typed up a lot of scripts.
Mhm.
He did two of them.
Okay.
He was in last year.
He's written scripts for those who couldn't hear that.
So I'm trying to get it published with nobody can steal his idea.
You just need to go to the Writers Guild, $25 a script, and it's registered, and you're fine.
What is it called?
The Writers Guild of America. Guild, G-U-I-L-D. Yeah, WGA. And I think it's WGA.org, right, to get there to it. So that's my question. Because if he doesn't want to do it, you can't call looking for agents and being a mom, because agents will back off quicker from that because they don't like helicopter parents or anything like that.
Like I was saying, the last part, how do you know if they legit and not out there? Because like,
Sure.
they look at his age and his disability and it's like, oh, I can take out his money.
Sure. So, I mean, everything has a trail, a digital footprint, if you will, online. So like they were saying, just research. If have they made Deadline? Have they made Variety? Is there chatter about them? Is it good or bad? You can Google these people's names. You can Google their boutique agencies and just see what comes back, because there's always going to be something online. So that's a way where you can vet them. And then you can also reach out to other people who are within the acting community and ask them if they've heard of them and what their reputation is. That's another way to vet. So that's number one. That's for acting. Number two, if he wants to work behind the scenes, you can go to the Georgia Film Commission website, and when you go there, like on the top left, I think there's a pull-down bar that says Georgia Hotline, Georgia Helpline, and it will show you the incoming projects that are coming in. And they'll have emails on there to the production offices. And you can email these production offices and say, hi, my name's so-and-so, I have a disability, and I want to work in the art department as a PA. Or, because it sounds like he's got very good art skills with what you said. That's why I picked that. But I would just keep doing that and seeing what type of chatter you can get back from that. But it's going to be hard coming into it without a recommendation, because everybody in this, they say you know everybody knows everybody, and it's true. We're literally 3 steps away from everybody else. So all he needs is the one production to open it up for him, and he'll meet a group of people. Then when they go to the next production, they'll love him, bring him with them. That's how it works. And then he can transfer, and he learns, he meets other people. That's just how it works.
Thank you. We're gonna pause right now because we've got what I'm gonna do, because we're coming to the end, and I know we've got another question. What I want to do is invite you guys over, and we're gonna just kind of have a networking time. And if you have specific questions that you want to ask someone in particular, I know that Marty has a hard out at 5 o'clock. It is 4:40, and I'm sensitive and thoughtful of the time. And so we will definitely want you guys to have some refreshments. We've got water and lemonade over there to the side. But this is our industry mixer time now. And so we've got some, give it up for our panelists, you guys. Yes. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you, and we're going to escort them off to the side. If you have any questions, I know this young lady has a question, so I don't know if there was anyone in particular, so you may want to check with them. And then, Anton, I'm going to help you down. Remember to think warm.
What's up, dude? My name is Brian. I like it. Hi, Mr. Showability. Sam. What's going on? I was just going to ask, does every individual who has a disability, does every one of them need an agent if they're going to...
Get to work, and that's when the agents will find you. So who needs you work for? Who needs you acting?
Okay, and where does this QR code take?
The QR code is for cards.
Oh, I'm not dead.
Yes. Let me pull this around.
Thank you so much.
How did the streaming go again?
About the discussion.
Wait a minute. The discussion on streaming?
Yes.
Okay, and what about the PowerPoints? Did they make it? The PowerPoint presentations for streaming, did they make it?
Well, I
was
said,
supposed to switch.
yes.
Yes.
Yes, and so the PowerPoint made it to streaming as well.
Yes, we did make it to streaming.
I'm going to be